Welcome to the SufferSooner podcast. Follow along with three average people doing some above average things. We have jobs, families, and we enjoy pushing ourselves to be the best that we can be in gravel, triathlon, and endurance sports. We've made mistakes, conquered what was once impossible to us, and pushed through barriers to come out the other side stronger, smarter, and more willing to find the truth in the dark places that only suffering can take you. Sometimes in life you have to be willing to push yourself in an attempt to get it over faster, and thus you may just have to suffer sooner. Alrighty, guys. Welcome to episode 9. Today was a special day. We have open range race director Eric with us, and he's going to talk to us about open range. So thanks for joining us, Eric. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I appreciate y'all having me on. It's my pleasure to come and talk about open range and to talk to the three of you who do some amazing things as well. So.
Awesome.
Eric, I don't want you to sell yourself short here. I'd sure love to start with kind of a little bit of your history and how you come to putting on this amazing gravel race. I would start with Eric and I are friends from high school, and he and I ran high school cross country together what seems like only 5 years ago, but maybe was a little bit longer than that. And he and I really lost touch for many, many years. And I know Eric has done some really extraordinary things through college and kind of his early 20s. So I'd love to start there with what you've been up to.
Yeah. So after high school, went to Kansas State, graduated from there, and I did a ROTC there. So Reserve Officer Training Corps. When I graduated college, I was also then commissioned into the Army as a second lieutenant. Went to flight school for the Army. So people sometimes don't think that the Army has aircraft, but we have, quite a few helicopters. Learned how to fly down in Alabama, flew Blackhawks for about 17 years, and then switched over to the Chinook about 3 years ago. So, I've been deployed in numerous countries overseas in that time and whatnot. And that's kind of, we'll maybe hit later or maybe right now, but that's where open range actually started. The idea of it started while I was in Kuwait on a deployment. So yeah, I've been in the Army for 21 years. Also on the kind of my day job, I guess, if you will, I'm in law enforcement in the Kansas City metro area. And so, some people say that it's an adrenaline junkie, and I wouldn't say that, because neither one of those gives me an adrenaline rush. There's exciting times, of course, but it's a job, one that I like. I really like both of them a lot. So, that's kind of what I do on the personal side. And then, getting into some endurance sports has been kind of my release, I guess, my fun activity, if you will. Type 2 fun, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's the down.
Your type 2 fun is so extraordinary. Can you just talk a little bit about some of the races you've done, some of the kayaking you've done?
Sure. Yes.
What I want to grow up and be someday.
That's really nice. So so when I did active duty for about 7 years after college, and then we moved back to the Kansas City area, or moved to the Kansas City area. I guess my wife's from the area. I'm not, but we moved back to her part of it. And I was looking for something to stay active, and I saw a news article about the MR340, the Missouri River 340. It's a kayak race from Kansas City to St. Charles, just outside of St. Louis. And I was like, that would be a great sport to get into and be something, it would be fun to do and stay active. And so I found a group that met in Johnson County, which is just outside of, kind of the suburb of Kansas City, and met up with them. Had bought a cheap plastic kayak and went to my first kayak race, and it was on Hillsdale Lake. Still remember, I think it ended up being about 12 miles, and got smoked. I was last place, using all the wrong technique, just I just killed myself on it. And, but I was hooked. That's kind of what hooked me. The people were awesome. They were just down to earth, good people, wanted to see me get better and continue with the sport. So I stuck with it. And as you do, and you get involved in these activities, you learn what works and what doesn't. You upgrade equipment to have a better experience and get faster. So I did all that and ended up, it was too late that year to enter that MR 340 race. And so I had to wait to the next year, entered that race. My first year, I had upgraded boats and I made it about 140 miles and my back just tightened up and gave out. So I pulled out at Glasgow, Missouri that year after about 20 hours or so of paddling, I think it was 2 or 3 in the morning. And but I vowed that I'd come back and do it again. So the following year, I got a different boat, a very fast canoe that had a cover on it, and did it again. And it's kind of funny because I told myself I was actually not going to stop at Glasgow where I'd been up at. So most people would, because it's a natural ramp on the river to stop at and resupply. But I chose, just for a mentality standpoint, to avoid stopping there. And so sure enough, I made my plan to go around it. Completed that year. That was in 2012, I believe. And that was about a 60-hour race. Slept, I don't know, maybe 6 hours.
Did you say 6-0, Eric?
That's what I heard.
Yeah, 6. I mean, of real sleep. There's probably more downtime than that, but of actual sleep was probably about 6, maybe somewhere between 6 and 10, probably. We'll say that. I really haven't looked at those stats in a while. And so this is trying to remember about 12 years ago. So then, that was it might have been 2013, excuse me. Then 2014, I was deployed to Afghanistan, came back, and in 2015, entered the MR 340 again, had an upgraded boat to a surf ski. So it's an 18-foot fiberglass, fairly lightweight, but not as light as it could come, but kayak, very, very sleek, about 18 inches wide, 22 inches wide, 18 feet long. And that year I did the race, and my goal was not to place. I don't ever consider myself a fast person at anything, really. So goal was, it was just, they had a club. If you made it under 50 hours, then you get your name on a list, essentially. Nothing else special, just your name on a list that had the 50-hour club. So that was kind of the goal, was I'm going to try to do this in 50 hours. And got going. Things were going well. My parents were my ground crew, and they were swapping out bags at the checkpoints, doing an awesome job. And however, though, my nutrition was, I was just not eating. I was, putting my body through a lot of stress, was not eating. Somehow, I don't know how, I was able to keep going, keep paddling. And towards the end, I knew I was doing well. And in fact, one lady was like, at one of the checkpoints, like, "Hey, do you want to know your splits?" And I was like,
Nope.
No, I'm just out here, like, I'm not taking it that seriously. And I think she kind of was like, gave me this weird kind of look. And I still remember it. I'm like, wonder why she's like trying to tell me my splits and stuff like that. Like, I'm okay. So, and I didn't even know what that meant. I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. So, get going. I beat a storm at one point that was like right on. I mean, the rain and the wind was picking up, and it was about to hit. And I made a quick decision, like, I'm just going to go and, hopefully be able to out paddle this storm, and was able to. And then the last 8 hours of the race, it seemed like everyone else is going slow for some reason. I don't know what was going on. It was like, why am I passing all these people? And And so I ended up finishing 340 miles in about 39 and a half hours.
Wow.
Here. No sleep, just completely going from start to finish, and ended up in third place. And it was a surprise to me when I crossed the finish line where I was at. So
hearing you just say that, like you went into that, you said, no intent of like trying to finish a place or podium. You just put yourself like to the limit of suffering. You're like, you know what, we're just going to go through this. And you talked about your nutrition. It's not like anybody that does endurance sports knows how important nutrition is. And so you're still new enough to this, like, nutrition's important, but you're just trying to get this thing done, like cross it off the list, right? Next thing you know, you're standing on a podium effectively.
Right.
Wow, that is
and and your mind does funny things. I wouldn't say that I've never hallucinated before with lack of sleep. I think I have at this point now, but generally I can stay pretty lucid. And even being lucid, as I was coming to the finish line, there was a boat ahead of me, because you have to have these navigation lights on your boat. And I saw these navigation lights, but for some reason, I didn't think it was another kayaker. I thought it was there's a lot of fishing that goes on the Missouri River. I thought it was a boat that was fishing at night because of where it was at, and making, to me, how it looked like it was going along. I just did not, I was like, a kayaker wouldn't be there. And so it crossed in front of me at one point, and I'm like, I was waiting for the wake of this boat, and I didn't feel it. And it's still, though, my brain's not allowing me to believe that it's another paddler. And we cross under the last bridge, and the finish line is basically a set of pallets that are next to the shore, and you have to touch the pallet. And so I'm looking at my watch, and I'm like, all right, my goal was under 50 hours. I'm actually now under 40 hours. I kind of stop paddling as I'm getting close to the thing, because I don't want to run my boat into this piece of wood, essentially. And I'm like, what's it going to matter if they stop my time now or in 10 seconds? To me, it didn't matter. And these people at the finish line are yelling, hey, you need to touch the dock. You need to touch the dock. And I'm like, why are they yelling at me? Like, I still got half an hour before it even is the 40-hour mark. And at that point, I look over, and what I thought was a fisherman was another kayaker, was another racer. And he looks over at me. Same thing. He didn't know I was behind him or was right next to him. And so we look over, we both see each other at the exact same time. And then we take a paddle. Probably almost identical paddle strokes. And I ended up just edging them out, apparently, by a split second. And so
like a sprint finish
on
a 40-hour day. It comes down to a sprint finish. Holy cow.
We were literally just one paddle stroke from that finish line before we both realized we were there. So neither one of us were, I wouldn't even say sprinting, it was just that one last stroke that got us in there.
Empty the tank. Yeah.
You're just like, I just want to be done. Where's it? Where's the end? Can it be done now?
No kidding.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
So how do you, so you go from an experience like that where, you just kind of launch yourself into the sport, and you find yourself in a position of, a third place finish on a, an ultra endurance type event. So how do you go from that, working yourself into cycling, and now running what I would call like one of the best races in the Midwest?
Well,
yeah.
First, thanks for calling it one of the best. That's quite a accolade. That's kind of an interesting story as well. So as I was preparing for a deployment to Kuwait, I started actually getting into running, and I was looking at just doing, again, I really like the ultra endurance. And so I was thinking I maybe could, work myself up to doing some longer, either marathon or ultra marathon type of running races. And what I liked about running is that for equipment, it really just needed some shoes, and that was it. And I was, in the kayak, I'm spending, kind of like in the bike world, I'm spending thousands of dollars on a boat, and, hundreds of dollars on a paddle, and I've got to, load my boat up, take it over to the lake or wherever I'm going to paddle it. And so I was like, running might be a good option. So I entered the Rock the Parkway half marathon, which is down by the plaza in Kansas City. Did that. Half marathon had a good time and was running. Went to Texas to work up for this deployment. And while I was down there, I ended up injuring my knee, and I don't know what happened to it. I had an MRI done. The results were kind of inconclusive, possibly a torn meniscus, but it was enough to where orthopedic surgeon kind of looked at it and was like, "Yeah, I would probably not choose running as a sport for you. Your knee's already showing some arthritis and everything." So yeah, he's like, "Yeah, you can run here and there, but I would try to limit it."
Yeah.
So that then turned me to cycling, and I had some friends that had done Dirty Kansas.
Okay.
And so I kind of looked into that, and at first I was kind of hesitant. I'm like, man, these guys in Lycra, and I can never wear that and do that. Like, yeah, just, but as I was in Kuwait, I ended up getting they had a program where you could rent bicycles and use that to get around. And so I rented a bicycle. It was like essentially a Walmart, a Mongoose, I think, full suspension thing.
Yeah.
And so just started cycling while I was there. I ended up they had a cycling club kind of thing, like an indoor spin class. So got real active in doing the spin class almost every morning. And I just started doing some research and
just kind of went from there.
Yeah, and went from there. Yeah.
So you kind of did the cycling what you did to kayaking. You went all in on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You must shop somewhere else. You said your gear cost thousands of dollars. According to my wife, it doesn't cost that much. So you must shop somewhere else. Perhaps I don't know about you, Serene.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
So
Well,
Eric,
our
what do you have
spouses are key on to the fact that this is not a very inexpensive sport.
Well, you can edit that out, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Eric, what do you have on tap for this year? I know you've done some really ultra long cycling events.
Right. So I've done 2 races so far. So I did Rage Against the Chainring, had their last hurrah, which is generally for those outside of the area. It's a 50-mile to 25-mile loop race that's been around Wichita for the last 10 years. This year they just did one 50-mile loop and the 100-mile loop. So I did that, just did the 50. And it's kind of funny. I like to do ultra endurance, but there's some gravel races I like to do the shorter version just to be done and kind of relax. So I did the 50 on that. I just got back from Texas, did Trail of Tears down in Texas. Did the 100 and ended up being about 112-mile loop on that. I've got, what else do I got coming up? I've got, I guess Valley of the Tears, I'm sorry, is what it's called. Flint Hills Gravel is coming up. I'm doing that 89, 87 mile on that. The Grind, I'm looking at doing a 2-day ride.
We'll be there.
Yep. Awesome. Yeah. And that'll be, 160 miles between 2 days.
Yep.
I've got a couple charity rides. So with being in law enforcement, we do a ride from essentially, varies where it starts, but sometimes Leawood to Topeka, and that's a day ride out there. And then I'm going to DC, and they have a law enforcement memorial in DC for Police Week. We ride from Richmond up to DC, and that ends up being it's over 3 days, and it's about 260-ish miles, I think, if I remember right, over 3 days. And I tell you what, though, it is what's difficult about that charity ride is that we'll end up pushing, if people are having problems making it up hills, we'll actually physically push them. We'll ride up next to them and kind of put our arm on their back and help them out. And last year doing it, I was just getting over a really bad chest cold. And so like my lung capacity was not where it needed to be. And yet I consider myself at this point a strong rider. And so I'm pushing these people up a hill, and was just, I mean, it was a lot of work, but you realize like what the purpose of it's for, and it's to honor, fallen law enforcement officers, and some of these people were, family members of law enforcement officers that had been killed in line of duty. So it was definitely worth it, but it was very, very difficult as well. So
yeah, with friends and family and law enforcement and military, and it's just such a tight knit group. You guys, everybody really knows how to take care of each other for sure. Great cause. So so you've done you obviously are a fanatic, right? You do all these ultra endurance events. I don't know if you still kayak, but I don't know how you'd fit it in with all the biking. I know you do. But so how do you go from loving the sport of cycling the way you do and doing all these events to now sort of running your own event? And I call it one of the best races in the Midwest because I was introduced to it a few years ago, had the pleasure of doing it, coming back again this year. Like as long as you're going to keep doing the race, we're going to keep signing up for it. And we'll get into some of the spirit of that, but how did open range really get started?
Yeah, so and this goes back to kayaking as well. So when I was kayaking, I really wanted to develop a kayak race, and I was looking at some different places. I looked at doing one down in Wichita, basically downtown Wichita, and I actually took my kayak down there and went in right across from, or what used to be Gander Mountain, I guess, and paddled up the Arkansas River and turned around just to kind of see what the water looked like and how it would support, if it could support a race. And then I went on that deployment, and so that kind of changed some things. But so having that desire to be a race director has been there even before I got into cycling. And then when I was in Kuwait and started cycling is when I thought, okay, well, what if I did a ride? I wasn't even thinking a race at the time, and all of this developed really quickly. So what if I develop a ride from Pratt down to Buster's in Sun City? And for those that grew up in the area, I think it's kind of a rite of passage to go to Buster's and even before, even if you weren't 21, but you go there and get a burger at least. And just kind of this Wild West saloon is what it reminds you of. And so that was the first idea. It was just, I'm going to get a bike. I actually ordered one off of Amazon. It was a decent, you kind of laugh about it. I mean, it was a Diamondback.
I love it.
Yeah, it was a decent bike. It was carbon fiber Diamondback 105 group set. And I somehow got it super cheap. As soon as I bought it, the price went up about $800. I think it was a fluke. I think it was, and again, it was one of those things. Maybe not. Maybe it was designed just for me to get it at that price point.
Yeah, right.
Sport. Yeah. Maybe it's all
things happen.
And,
that's right.
And so, so I did that. Had the bike shipped, to my house in the States, and then I started developing like this idea. Well, what if I made it a race? And then I kind of started doing some research on gravel races and watched a lot of different videos. And I'm like, man, this is just like the kayak world I was in. Same type of people, they want to do something hard on the weekend, and, they enjoy life and enjoy people. And so it just, one thing led to another. And before I knew it, I had a route down, and I was calling people from Kuwait, trying to pretend like I was local. I was still, in the States, and asking questions. And I put together a huge PowerPoint slide deck, and I sent it to a friend of mine that works for Trek Bicycles, and I said, "Hey, Wade, take a look at this. Let me know what you think." It's kind of been on my mind lately. And a couple of days went by and hadn't heard anything, and so I contacted him again, like, "Wait, hey, just wondering if you happen to see the document I sent you." And he's like, "Dude, it was like 40 pages, man. Like, yeah, it looks like you got everything covered. Like, it looks good. Like, go for it." And so, I went from there, and when I came back from Kuwait, picked a date, figured out how to, set up an LLC while I was over there, get a business checking account, get Facebook, accounts, how to do some social media stuff, which I don't do at all on my personal side. I mean, very, very little, I should say. And so, and I talked to my wife beforehand. I was like, hey, some people spend thousands of dollars to get an MBA, and what is it? It's a piece of paper. It's,
Right.
Hey, this might, if we put this race on, it might cost us the first year. And then we'll have to decide if we want to do it again. Like just things I want to provide to riders. Like if we don't get enough, I'm still going to provide those things. So we might, take a small hit, but people pay $1,000 for an MBA, and this is just paying for an experience. So kind of took that. She was very supportive of it. We took that mentality, like, yeah, it's going to be an experience of whether we have to dip into our own pocket for it or whatnot. And I went from there. So developed, made a lot of contacts, and everything just kept seeming to open up where I needed help with. People were willing to help, and we got in with some good sponsors, and we got in with the Pratt Public School Foundation, which is one of the organizations we donate some of our money to, and they were able to provide a lot of volunteers. And then I knew Sun City was going to be a checkpoint. So and this is again, just a weird kind of way things happened. A gentleman named Doug from the church in Sun City, which again, Sun City is like 2 blocks by 4 blocks, maybe. Mm-hmm. There's a church and a bar, essentially is it. Just the church and the bar. And Doug was a member of the church, and he contacts me before I even contact anyone at that church. But he's like, hey, so I ride a lot in that area, and anything I can do to help you, I'd love to help you. We own a house there in Sun City, and go to the church there. And I said, wow, I was like, hey, you're exactly the person I wanted to get a hold of, and didn't know it. And so he helped make that connection with the church, and they're again one of the great sponsors there for the checkpoint in Sun City, and provide all the volunteers there. So
wow,
it's one of those things. It just, everything kept, you ask yourself what if, and then you try to make it happen. And when things keep opening up, and even if there's little stumbling blocks, you just there's it kind of your SufferSooner. You deal with it and
move on.
You got a way to adapt and overcome, and So what's funny, by the time I got back from Kuwait, I had 6 weeks on the ground to actually put this whole thing together, to see the course in person, and make sure everything was going to work. And at the time, I actually had not even been to a gravel race before. I'd never even been to a bike race, period, let alone a gravel race. And so, by the time we had our first open range, I had never even personally raced in a gravel race.
Wow.
So there's certain things you shouldn't do. One of them, if you are wanting to donate, you shouldn't create a race to donate money, is what they said on one of the websites I had looked at. And you probably shouldn't create a race that you've never even participated in that type of activity before.
Well, something I just picked up on what you just said, like you coordinated most of that first race overseas.
Right.
You said you hadn't even ridden it until 6 weeks before the first event. That is wild. But I think, everything you just went through kind of probably takes us into the next topic around like the spirit of gravel, because there's a lot of conversation about, what is the spirit of gravel and what does it really mean? You get everybody has an opinion on what they think the spirit of gravel is, but what you just talked about is it, right? I mean, you had buy-in from a number of people, and first and foremost, the one thing I think that makes races work and keeps people coming back is the volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so you just talked about that. So maybe tell us a little bit more about the community engagement and like sort of how this is all sort of evolved, when was the first race, the first open range race? 2018. So maybe like, how has it evolved since then?
Yeah, it's that's what's great. And so I moved to Pratt in 94, I believe it was right before my 8th grade year. and lived there essentially, 8th grade through high school. Went off to college, would come back in the summertime, and then once college was over, moved on and whatnot. But still to this day, when people ask where I'm from, I say Pratt, which I know is not what they mean. They mean, where do you live now? But I in my life, that's kind of where I made so many connections and really, I guess, developed as a person, if you will. And so Pratt is, that's my hometown, and will always be that. And so I knew, and having lived in different areas of the country, knew it had something special. And so when I was, again, planning the race, I contacted some of the city officials and county officials. And what I found out was I either had a connection to them from, just the short time I was there in the past, or they had connections to my family. So it was just the right place at the right time to kind of create this thing. And so, the community buy-in's been huge. I contacted the Pratt Public School Foundation to see if they were interested in helping. And the person who replied back to my email, she graduated. I think she might have been in Serena's class. Carrie, is she in your class, Serena?
She was a year behind me.
Okay, so yeah,
that's
right. Yeah, she would have been 2 years.
To add a little context, Pratt is also my hometown.
Yes,
and I'd still claim it as where I'm from as well.
Yes. So Carrie replies back to my email that her husband also rides gravel out there, and they own a restaurant and would love to be a sponsor. And so that made another connection. So everywhere I needed help in the community, they just
opened up.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So it's the community volunteers. We donate our proceeds to those volunteer groups. So we don't make any money on this. It all goes back into that, into the community or into the race. So it's
awesome.
Yeah. I tend to one of the reasons I really like your guys' race is that, when I sign up and, I order a sticker and, some other stuff, and then I get it, a couple weeks before the race, I get a little handwritten note that says, on open range letterhead or whatever. And it says, thank you for registering for the race, and here's your sticker, and we can't wait to see you guys out there. And, some people my mom hates that I make her do this. I really value cards and handwritten stuff, because it just shows that you took the time to think about what you were going to say, and writing takes time. It's one thing to speak to text and all that other stuff, but when you actually write something out, it just shows just a little extra level of care that I just really love about the race. And then the fact that you guys, last year, it was Van Halen themed, and just all this stuff. I just, your guys' patches and stuff. I just really, they're some of my most prized gravel possessions. I think that part of the spirit of gravel is just huge. The community that's involved, everybody's super friendly there. And then just this, just hearing you say, oh, what if what if we, contact the landowner to this ranch and see if he would let us ride our bikes through it on, on a Saturday in April. And then, you call him up and he says, yeah, sure. Come on through.
Again, that landowner, he wants to make it so difficult sometimes. It really is funny, but he's so about having riders come through and see his land, because he knows, it can be that forgotten part of the Midwest or of Kansas. Even it's not the Flint Hills. It's not a big city. And when, they had fires down there back in 2013, I think it was, or 2014 maybe. And so he understands, like, the more people know about that area, and if we can invite them out and they can see it, then if they do have another huge fire that comes to the area, that many more people are going to know about it and take it, care about that area. So yeah, he loves opening up his roads for the race. So, but on your thing about the t-shirts and the patches and stickers and everything, and that's, when you didn't go to a race before you hold your own, like you don't have any set ideas of what it has to be. And so it kind of opens up your mind and frees your mind, especially having done the kayaking. You see how they do it in a different sport. And so that was one thing I wanted to create a race and get stuff and do things that I wanted as a rider of a race. And so, and that goes with the route, providing a route that takes you to some really cool areas and see some really cool things. And worst they can do is, when I ask a landowner, is then say no. And we've had landowners say no. There's some areas where I think it'd be really cool. And, at this point we can't get to right now because it's private property and the landowners aren't willing to open it up yet. It doesn't mean I'm not going to, keep trying, but we'll see. And, the other thing was on our yearly t-shirt logo changes. And that's one thing I wanted. I didn't want just a different color t-shirt. I wanted, a completely different little logo that you could collect and have different, and know, oh, that was, 2020, that was 2021. And so yeah, we like to do that and make that a little different every year.
I love your perspective. You nailed it. Like this race is not like any other race. And I think the folks that have done this race would attest to that. And my first year was a couple years ago, and it was to help me get ready for Unbound 100. And Travis was kind enough to, and Serena were kind enough to throw this on the calendar. And this was supposed to be the quote easy race to get ready for Unbound. And you think about it, you see, you think, everybody, even if you're from the Midwest, you think of Kansas, and most people think of Western Kansas, flat highlands and just, pancake flat. And I think your course it's so dynamic. And I'm looking, as we're talking here, I'm looking at the picture that's in the video feed here, and that's Kansas. Like people don't think of Kansas as having that type of dynamic landscape. And then you just happen to find the roads that give a little more salt and pepper of like the sand. And then you get inevitably in the early spring, you get that heavy headwind out of the north. Right. So like, what are some of the stories from over the years of both sort of how the route has changed? You talk about the landowner that wants to always make it a little bit more challenging. Like and quite frankly, it's so unpredictable. You never know what Mother Nature is going to throw at you. Right. So it's just such a dynamic course. So maybe talk us through like some of the things you've seen. Yeah.
So, with creating the course, it's kind of funny. This just came to mind, but I had somebody on a survey once say, "Hey, let's go north one year." And if you've ever spent any time around the area, like if we went north, we would have about 10 feet of elevation change.
Yeah.
And completely missed the Gypsum Hills. And so, we had to start finishing Pratt because logistics wise, it can handle the amount of people with hotels and volunteers and whatnot. And so that's why it's in Pratt. And every year, I think we're going to have a south wind because one thing's inevitable. It's going to be we're going to have some wind. I think one year we maybe had it under 10 miles an hour, which was just incredible. And still people were like, man, that wind was killer. It's like
I would kill to have 10 miles an hour.
Yeah. He told me it was 10 miles an hour. I'd be like, sign me up. I'll do it every day of the week.
This is our 7th year. And the 6 years prior, we've always had a north wind for some reason. And I can't figure that out. But yeah, it's, the people down there are great. It's, some of the stories, I guess, I've heard, a number of people that, hit some of the sandier sections and fall over, and they're like, oh, but it was okay, because it was, it was a pillow of sand and it wasn't very long. And, I got back on the bike and started going. And so, that's cool. There was a story about some riders who ended up having to get picked up, and they found some local rancher who picked them up, and they had apparently he had like a bottle of Jim Beam in the truck, and,
Nice.
and they had taken communal swigs of the Jim Beam on their
Nice.
way back. So the people down there, not just the volunteers, but the people, like, up here in the city, if you see somebody raise their hand off the steering wheel, it's usually giving you a 1-finger salute.
Yep.
Down there, like, if they don't wave to you, like, you're like, why didn't that guy wave? Like, it's, they raise, it might just be 1 or 2 fingers off the steering wheel, but it's not the same meaning as the bridge between
one
the
in the
lanes.
city.
Yeah.
It's true Midwest, isn't it?
That's why gravel is so dear to me.
Uh-huh.
I have some experience, I don't know if you know, with triathlon and Ironman racing, and nobody out there is going to help you with anything, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, they might not run you over if you crash in the road, maybe. But they're not giving you any of their snacks, and they're probably not going to stop and help you. But that's what I really love about gravel and open range, especially, is if today's not your day, somebody's going to pick you up and hand you a shot of Jim Beam and drive you back to town, and nobody's going to give you a hard time about it. Right. And you did a hard day just like everybody else, and you don't feel that sense of kind of almost elitism that I feel in other places where I've raced. And that's, I think, why gravel has become one of my favorite things to do, because anybody can show up. I showed up on an e-bike last year. Nobody gave me a hard time. And it's just about doing something really epic on the day. Yep. And I think that's missing from some of the other things that we try to do.
Yeah. And that's, we don't provide a pickup service at this point. I've thought about adding one, or like an optional, find a local group that wants to do it, and then, you donate to them or whatever. But one reason I don't have a pickup service is that I want people, I want them to finish it. So I want them to push beyond what they think they're capable of. And if we don't say we're going to pick you up, then I have a hope that they will push beyond what they think they're capable of. The other reason is because usually they're going to get to a checkpoint, and that's where they're going to decide that it's not going to be their day. And at that checkpoint are going to be, numerous other support crews that are there that are more than willing to probably take them back to the start line. And so I've had people call me before, and I'm like, hey, look, you're at the checkpoint? Like, yeah. I'm like, do you see any vehicles there with bike racks on them? Like, yeah. I said, well, why don't you try to find the owner of one of those vehicles and just ask them if they can give you a ride. Because it's going to take me a long time to get there. and sure enough, they do. And they're just like you said, sir. I mean, there's no pretentiousness. They're willing to help each other out, provide any support they can. And that is the great thing about this sport.
Yeah. I going back to that 40 mile an hour, wind from the south the other, like 2 years ago. I like the fact that you're not giving the option for an easy out,
right?
For participants, which is great. So me and Danny met up, and we were going to the last little town. What is it? Sawyer.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. We're at Sawyer, and we're getting water, and, I had to let my feet rest and stuff. And Danny was he was in a bad spot from
on the pain train.
The head, from the headwind and stuff. Then this guy rolls up, and he's like, can I just ride with you guys until we get back to, and, he's just like, I'm just kind of, done with this wind and stuff. And we're like, yeah, dude, just come, we're not, here setting any land speed records. We're just trying to survive the day like everybody else. We're like, yeah, just come on in and share some poles and I think I gave him, some of my snacks and stuff. And it was just, we were just all made it back.
That's awesome.
Together and crossed the line. together. And it was just, I mean, that's kind of what gravel is. It's not cutthroat. It's just, we're just out here. We're all experiencing the same hard day.
Yeah.
And we're just trying to get through it together, which I think is just, that's the best part.
And that's, that's what's neat in the sport, 95% maybe of the people that sign up know they're not going to make the podium. And so, and I've said this before on other podcasts, but, for me, not being a podium rider, that's the people I want to make happy. I want to make everyone happy, right? Whether you're on the pointy end or whether you're in the 95% of the people that know they're not going to make the podium. But I want those people that aren't on the pointy end to have just as good of an experience as those that cross the finish line first. And so that's, I think, an important aspect. And hopefully we do that. Hopefully they feel just as good crossing that finish line, no matter where they're at, because you're right. It's, so many of us are just trying to survive, and we go out to do hard things and to prove, that we're still alive, I guess. And so that's important.
So I love that we've been talking about this for 45 minutes now. And we've covered how dynamic the course is and how much of a challenge the course is. And then I love your perspective of, sort of forcing people to finish, like make them push beyond their own comfort zone. It's easy to call it quits at the aid station.
Yeah.
And don't offer people that easy way out. We got done with the first year I rode this race. We got done with it, and we nicknamed it the Crucible, because you come out harder on the other side. Like Unbound 100 was easy compared to this race. It really was. I mean, it was easy. It was cakewalk. And I love that we've been talking so long, and there is no comparison between this race and any other gravel race in the area. And that's not because other gravel races aren't great. This just has so much to offer. And I think there are folks out there that need to discover this race. And I love how you've set this up to just be an experience for people. It really is. It's really is something amazing.
Well, and Eric, I would ask you too, how do you not get pulled into what everything else gravel has become? I mean, we're not talking about hundreds of dollars in entry fees for your race. Right. We're not talking about a pro field. We're not talking about all of these extra rules that you have to follow. How have you kept it as the race that you envisioned while you were in Kuwait?
That's a good. Go ahead. What else?
Oh, and why is that important to you? I guess.
Yeah, because I think it's just, answer that one. It's who I am, and I wanted, again, a race that I wanted to do. Not that I get to actually ride it on race day, but I wanted, I wanted a race that I'd be proud to put on. And, I guess on the other side too, I don't have time. Like, I've got a full-time job, almost two full-time jobs really, in addition to this. And so, I think it's, when you talk about the race fees, going up, there's a time, is it a bad thing? Not necessarily, I guess. Is it something we're going to do? No. Does it bring people into the sport? I hope so. I hope, if they want to ride a race that costs $300, and that's what they want to do to check a block, that's great. If it brings them into the sport, and then we can get some of those people to try our race, even better. But yeah, it's I wouldn't say I would say it's sometimes frustrating on a personal level. You see a race that charges a high fee, and you see it sell out, almost immediately. And internally, I think that is the wrong message for this sport. I think it's excluding a bunch of people. When this sport came, it was about inclusion, and I feel that when you have race fees that charge that amount, they're essentially trying to prevent people from from riding other races. If they're going to only ride that one race, they're not going to have money to ride other races, and Kansas is great. We've got so many, Kansas, Nebraska, Missouri, we've got so many grassroots race directors around here. And several of us are on we have each other's phone numbers. And so we talk amongst each other and text and call. And I have 2 other race director friends right now that I can pick up the phone and call, and that would talk for an hour of issues of race issues. And so that's a cool aspect. And we're not in it to make money. We're not in it to be rich or anything like that. So it's just that's kind of the whole background of it, of what why we do it is we want people to enjoy the area and do something hard and not try to overly overcharge people for riding these roads.
Yeah. I got one more for you, Eric, as we talk about contrast. So as you know, last year you changed the course of your race pretty close to the start of the race, took out a section that was just too muddy.
Yeah.
In contrast, 2 months later, we all show up and participate in what is now known as Mudbound. People are destroying their bikes. They've lost their entire summer vacation and all the money that they had intended to invest in this race at mile 10. How did you make that decision to change the course that day?
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit before the recording started. Earlier in the week, I almost got my truck stuck down one of the roads. And so one, I looked at it as a potential safety issue of having to get a vehicle down there if we had to. Second, the race is difficult as it is. Even on a 0 wind day, it would still be a very difficult race. When there's a way to take a little bit of that out, I'm going to try and do that. And so there was a matter, it wasn't just one thing, it was numerous things that created that reroute from that really muddy section. It was a new section that we hadn't used before. And so I didn't feel like using it on that race last year would be the best decision. And so that's why I decided to take that section out and stay with the route that we'd had in the years past. And so it's a hard race. Don't need to make it more difficult if we can avoid it. And that's why we've got some sections of pavement. We've got more pavement than many other races probably, because I get it. I get the wind is going to be there. Some of the sandy roads might be there. So we throw in that pavement to kind of give you a little bit of a break sometimes.
Yeah. I like the pavement, especially when you get on the pavement and you're just going up a road hill instead of a gravel hill. That's pretty awesome. So but all kidding aside, I mean that the pavement sections are like just that. I wouldn't even call it relief. It's like enough that you can get the nutrition you need. If you're falling a little behind, you can just get that little bit of relief, a little bit of mental sharpness back, and then you're right back in it. So. I thought your comments were really interesting about the keeping the prices low and keeping this race accessible to everybody that wants to participate. And I think kind of we talked about the spirit of gravel earlier, but that really is what this is all about is keeping it accessible to people. And I don't want to put you on the spot with the question, but I'm curious, like, if you felt pressure from any influences out there, let's just call it, to change your race in any way. And then you kind of answered the question without me asking it. You mentioned you have a number of other race director friends in the area, and it's almost like hey, we still own this sport as the participants and the people who really care about it. Like, we don't have to conform to the commercialization of something that we all love here.
Right. Yeah. And So for those that don't know, when you see a race and they have, the pro riders there that show up, those riders aren't just showing up. The race is paying for them to show up. And most of them charge a fair, a good amount. I mean, it's what, and I don't blame them. I mean, it's their life. That's their job. Is to ride by. I mean, it's a pretty cool job.
Sure.
Don't get me wrong, but I mean, that's how they make money to survive. How they make money to eat and pay, provide for their family. So I'm not. No, don't get me wrong. I'm not upset at that. And I think those riders are good for the sport because people are interested in them. They follow them. They're interesting people, and they get people excited to ride. They get the average person excited to ride. So I don't, don't get me wrong. I don't blame them or anything, but know that those riders that are showing up to a lot of races are not just there because they necessarily think it's a cool event or whatnot. But they're being paid to be there, and so that was one thing I looked at last year was talking to one, and I ultimately decided it just wasn't in the cards for us once I realized kind of what the fee was, and that in fact my wife kind of reiterated it. She's like, do you need that? I mean, are you happy with where you're at? And it just kind of made me stop and think. I'm like, yeah, I'm happy with where we're at. I mean, we're all competitive people. So even as a race director, man, I'd love to, I'd love to sell out in 2 weeks, from when registration opens, or I'd love to increase my numbers, by, several hundred every year. I'm competitive in that aspect of it, but at the expense of reducing the amount that I'm going to be able to give to some really good charities. I'm not as excited about doing that. And if we were to have some pro type riders come out that we have to pay for, then I'm going to have to reduce either reduce the amount I give to the charities or increase my prices.
Yeah.
And
right.
Don't want to do either one of those.
Yeah. So that's a good segue into maybe the last little segment here about, the challenges of being a race director. Yeah. It's not easy. There's not a lot of glamour to it. You're not getting rich. I mean, nope. You mentioned you live in the Kansas City area, but I'm going to guess you probably don't live in the, next to Travis Kelce or Patrick Mahomes, right?
No.
So, you're doing this and you covered this earlier. You're doing this because you wanted to offer the experience. So how do we help? How do we as the participants help? And I know you get great support from the community.
Yeah. The biggest thing, what I found, social media is so finicky that algorithms do change all the time. I don't get it. I don't do enough research to figure out how to conquer that mountain. Telling other people, liking and commenting on social media posts. Those are the biggest things. Encouraging other people to sign up. I would rather us, word of mouth. I spend very minimal on actual advertising, posts on Facebook and Instagram. In fact, I don't think I've spent any this year, but I would say in 6 years worth of races, I've maybe spent $300 in sponsored posts. So yeah, just telling people, spreading the word, encouraging people, knowing that, I think we get a lot of people like, man, the sand and the wind. Yeah, it's some sandy spots. It's some windy spots, but, encouraging people that it's still a very doable race, and you're going to finish it and you're going to know you did an amazing thing. So, those are the best things I can say to help support the grassroots races is sign up early. Because I know as a rider myself, like when I look at a race and I see, oh, okay, there's so many people signed up for it, it encourages me to maybe sign up for it. So signing up early, telling other people about it, and commenting, liking and commenting, comments on social media all help.
Awesome. So where do people go? Where do people go sign up for it now?
Yeah. So you can go to our website, openrangegravel.com. Pretty easy. There'll be a link on there to register. That'll take you to the bike registration. But while you're on that website, what's great is there's some resources on there. There's a rider's guide, and that rider's guide will answer just about every question you can think of. It's one of those things I get. I got tired of answering the same question over and over again. So I tried to
so started typing up all the answers to all the questions.
Yeah, in the rider's guide. So I can just when I get a question, I'm like, send them the link. I'm like, hey, check this out. You should answer almost all your questions. If you got anything else, let me know. Because then I'll add it to the rider's guide for next year. So openrangegravel.com. So you got it up there. It's it's got everything. It's got the past results on there, so you can kind of see if you know anybody that you've are about the same level. You can kind of see what their average time was going through. So and that'll take you there. Our handle on Instagram and Facebook is at Open Range Gravel, and pretty easy. So
awesome.
Follow us there.
And then one last thing, probably, maybe we'll see. What is like, I know the route like changes and evolves every year. How is it like from the first year to this year? Like, is there plans of, 5 years down the road of making it, even crazier, or is it just kind of like,
I think we're at kind of the spot that we want to be at.
Okay.
I've looked at changing some things like reversing the course. That always comes to mind. I spend, I don't know, 100 hours, more probably on Ride with GPS to look at different changes to the route every year. I mean, you can ask my wife. In my spare time, when I'm not at either one of my jobs, I am thinking, or talking, strategizing open range stuff. If I'm not on a bike somewhere, so it's a daily thing. But as far as the course, I think where we're at, I've thought about doing again reversing the course. That just logistic wise presents a whole lot more problems. Issues if I reverse the course. But I thought about doing a relay type of activity. Just the person in the middle would get all the cool ranch areas.
Yeah.
The ends would
sign me up.
Yeah. and then the last guy from Medicine Lodge would, last guy or girl from Medicine Lodge will just ride into that headwind.
Yeah. So, and I'm not saying we won't add that. We might add that as a category some year, but some things that have changed too, like the 100K used to not be competitive, and so I decided 2 years ago to go ahead and make it competitive. So we do give out awards for the top male and female podiums on that. But as far as course, I think we're pretty close. We, with the Alexander Ranch, the Red Hills Rancher, we're able to kind of change that up every year, and so we try to do that, provide something a little bit different.
Yeah. Sure. And then, how, like, when do you? So to put on a race like this, is it 12 months out of the year? Like, are you? You put on the race, and then the next week, the first week of May, you're starting for,
right.
2025. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I think people don't understand that, being a race director, it's not like you're just like, oh, we're just going to have these people show up and they're going to give me money, and it's a 2-week deal. And that's it. I think people don't understand how much time you actually spend
right.
doing
And that,
this?
no, and I appreciate you asking that, because that's, I think you're right. It is. And like I kind of alluded to just a little bit ago, you ask my wife, and it is a daily, almost 365 kind of activity for me. Creating social media posts that are, try to be engaging, and getting people to sign up. And, the race is over. I might take a little break, but, as soon as the race is over, I've got to post results. I've got to post pictures. I've got to, do all of this, this stuff. I've got to get the registration stuff ready, the Facebook event thing for the following year. So, once the last rider's in, it's not the end of the day for me. It goes on. And then, there might be a little bit of a lull until our registration. Registration is generally about 6 months ahead of the race. And so, it's, creating that content is, it just takes up a tremendous amount of time, looking at the route, contacting landowners, because, you get permission, but that will only last for 1 year. And then I have to go back and every year kind of ask for permission again.
Yeah.
And so, talking to sponsors, oh gosh,
Yeah.
there's not, there aren't companies for most of these races that, just come to you and say, hey, we want to give you all this stuff, to give to your riders. Like, it is a constant process to be talking to companies and trying to find what fits, for us, for sponsors. Like, it's all, I like things that I use and what I found on a bike to work well. And so, if you see a sponsor on our page, it's something that I most likely have personally used and have their product, because I believe in it, and it makes it easier for me to say, hey, this is a good product. I've used it. This is a good sponsor. And so yeah, but all that stuff, it just takes time and effort. And on these small grassroots races, very few of us have, none of us have staff, and very few of us have teams. Like, for me, it's I've plenty of volunteer supports on the race day, but as far as the day in and day out stuff, it's just me doing this stuff. And so, when people contact either us through Facebook or Instagram or through our email, it's me replying to it. So, it's a 365 job, really is.
Yeah. Well, that's great, man.
And we appreciate you doing it.
Yeah, we do appreciate it. Like Danny said, I can't say enough good things about this race.
Thanks, Travis.
It's just, Serena first introduced me to it, and she's like, come to my hometown. We're putting on this race, and we did it. And I was, the first year, the headwind was just so bad. I was just like, I'm never coming back. Never ever coming back to this place.
We went to the rule, Travis. We went to the rule. You don't make a decision until 3 days after.
Right.
And then we're on the ride home, and I'm squirming in my seat because my hips hurt so much because I've just destroyed myself. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, it was kind of okay, right? And Danny's looking at me, and Serena's in the back seat, and she's going like, "Are you effing crazy? Because you guys, she's like, did you guys ride the same race? Like, aren't you guys like hurting right now?" And I'm like, yeah, but I mean, there's just something about that just kind of like I like. And the next thing we know, we're signing up.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And now it's becoming a staple in our season.
Yeah,
it's just like,
that's awesome.
So
yeah, and it is amazing. Like, that's, for me, what I call success is when I see people come back. The numbers are one way to look at it, but when I see riders like you that have ridden it and then have thought, oh, you know what, that was a really cool event, and decide to sign up again and come back. Like, we give out a belt buckle. If you do 5 years in a row of the 200K, you get a special belt buckle. And so, the first time we did that was year 5, and I was able to give out 5 belt buckles.
Wow.
And then this year, I think we're giving out 3 or 4. No, more than that. I think we're at 4 belt buckles this year. So, seeing those people come back year after year is what fills me up. Like, makes me know that, hey, this is worth doing. So.
I think I got a new goal. I need that buckle.
Yeah, now I need that buckle for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you didn't tell me there was a buckle.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna be wearing that on all my pants.
There you go.
Sure. Because they talk about Leadville, and Leadville has a buckle,
Yep.
and you do some of these ultra marathons, they have buckles and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, if I ever qualify, and I'm not a fast guy.
Yeah.
I'm a big guy. And I'm like, if I ever got a buckle, I would probably just wear that all the time, because I don't even own Levi jeans, but I'd probably just get those Levi's and put that buckle
because the guy out there welding it to his bike.
Yeah, because I'm like I freaking earned this.
Earned it.
Oh, yep.
And I want everybody to know.
Right.
So no, that's just awesome. That's so great. I just want to. Does anybody have any other questions or anything?
Serena?
No, I'm good. I'm excited to see you again, Eric.
Yes.
Thanks for making the Serena division. I appreciate it.
Yes.
I'm not going to enter this year. I'm going to ride all 200K on my new bike that's hopefully sitting in the garage right now.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, to bring that up, we talked last week or 2 weeks ago about Serena's e-bike division that she did, and then now I think you were telling us, Eric, that you have a couple of people signing up for the e-bike. Was it the 100K or the
100K? Yeah, we've got 12. So we created an e-bike division in the 100K, and we've got 12 riders signed up for that, which is I think a good amount, because these potentially riders that wouldn't be out there, and it's not like the bikes are pedaling themselves. So it still takes some effort, and we make that, it's a non-competitive group, but it still gives them an opportunity to feel like they're involved, and they get everything that a rider would in one of the other groups. So
man, that's so cool. And they'll probably do this 100K distance, and then they'll be like, you know what, maybe I can do the 200. And
next
then
thing they'll have a buckle.
Right.
But that's awesome. That's so great. And it's so good to hear that, especially in a bike industry that can be kind of elite.
Yeah.
Just being more welcoming to just all people riding bikes and all that other stuff. So I think that's just great. It's super positive. So.
Well, I just say, Eric, I think Open Range is a good representation of its race director. It's high quality event, and getting to know you over the last hour plus, it's obvious what a high quality person you are, and it's been outstanding to learn a little bit more about you, the background of the race itself, and the dedication you have to not only the race but to the experience that you're offering all of us who participate, and I just hope that we can find a way to help you towards your goal of selling that thing out on day one and really getting the word out. But I mean, it's incredible. Incredible event. Can't say enough good things about it.
Well, I appreciate it, Danny and Travis and Serena. Thanks for having me on. And being able to tell the story. It's a fun. I enjoy talking. When I was doing kayaks, I enjoy talking boats. I enjoy talking bikes and Open Range now. So I really appreciate the platform you have here.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, Suffer complete, man.
All right.
Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, please comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. If you have ideas for topics, questions, or would like coaching, please email SufferSooner@gmail.com. And remember, sometimes you just have to suffer sooner.